Welcome back. It's been a while. For those who don't know, my name is Bradley. I run the channel Books with Espresso. Um, it's been a couple weeks. I wanted to get a video out a lot sooner than this, but unfortunately, over the holiday break, my wife and I both got COVID, so there hasn't been a ton of reading. There hasn't been a ton of anything else except just getting rest and relaxation. But now that I'm good to go, finally back, we can go ahead and do a video. So, what I originally wanted to do was provide a video that kind of goes over like either a quarterly or monthly overview of the books that are going to come out in 2025 and which ones I am most interested in doing or in reading. That didn't happen. We're most of the way through January, so I think I'm going to scrap that video. Um, I've seen a ton of them already out, and I think it's just not going to be beneficial for me to kind of go ahead and like do it already a month into the year. But if you are interested in seeing that, just let me know. Leave a comment down below, let me know, and I'll go ahead and hash out that video. Like, I've got the research and everything of what books I'd like to read in 2025 that are coming out within this year, but I just feel like it might be a little bit too late to do something like that. So today is actually going to be a much more vlog style video, not this talking head like the last one was. What I thought might be a really good way of kicking off 2025, especially now that I am feeling much better and able to read a lot more. The best way I think to kick off 2025 strong and to really push myself to read more books than I did last year, or honestly, probably the most I've read in a year in general, is to start off with a 24-hour reading challenge. I've seen a couple of different creators do this last year. A lot of fun. I know there are different ways that people do it. There's doing how many books could I read in a 24-hour period, which I feel like isn't forcing me personally. That's a bad idea. I know some people tend, like, reading is their only hobby, and so outside of eating, sleeping, showering, whatever, they mostly just read. So doing it that way kind of like is really beneficial for them. Whereas for me, who has a shit ton of hobbies, like gaming, going to the gym, cooking, there's a lot of distractions for me that doesn't put my focus on reading. And so I'm going to go the other route, which is how many books can I read in 24 hours, where the 24-hour period is only reading time. So instead of saying, hey, so it's, honestly, what time is it right now? It's 11:09 right now. 11:09 tomorrow, I'll be done with my 24 hours. It's more of, if I have to take a stop for something, I pause the timer, eat, shower, sleep, whatever, and when I'm ready to read again, I start the timer again and see in 24 hours worth of reading, how much can I read? How many books can I get through? How many pages can I get through? How many audiobooks can I listen to? So that's what the constraints are for this challenge for me. If you are another creator watching this and this seems like a cool idea, like 100% definitely go ahead and do it. I think it's awesome for people to do, to kind of get an idea of what their limitations are and how much they might be holding themselves back when it comes to putting other things ahead of reading, and how much you can actually read if you put reading as your main priority. So let's get into what books I want to kind of focus on. So there are a couple of books that I would like to start, and I think the best way to do this challenge is to not focus on large books, but to focus on a little more bite-sized things. You can finish a lot more that way, and it allows me to knock off a lot of books that are on my shelves physically, and maybe a couple of my audio books that are a little bit shorter, and maybe even, if I have time, busting out the e-reader and knocking out maybe a couple of novellas on that end, just to kind of get what I've already purchased completed and out the way and make room for more books for me to buy. So the first one that I am going to try to read is a book that I've already kind of started this year, but because I got sick, I have been picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down, and I haven't really got much progress in it. But that is God Killer by Hannah Kaner. I'm not too far into this book. I think I'm about 4 chapters in. It's not a long book at all. It's only, I think it's less than 300 pages. So this is something I can definitely get to in a couple hours. I do also, I have purchased the audiobook, and I think that's how I'm going to start today, is at least do a little bit of audiobook listening while I do some cleaning. That way I can knock out two birds with one stone, and it forces me to do both, right? It forces me to get my cleaning done because I'm focused on that, but it also forces me to listen to the book. I think probably do that for about 2 hours, and then we can check back in after that time has started, because I'm not really going to do a vlog of me cleaning, because I don't want to show everybody how messy my house is right now. But that's the first one. If you haven't heard of it, it's I believe the last book comes out this year. God Killer is a book where we follow a god killer in this world where gods have essentially been banned. Worship of gods has been banned. Creating any sort of connection to a god has been banned. And so we follow a young lady who has been tasked, her entire job is to essentially find and kill these gods. City lords will say, hey, we've got a problem, we've got a god that's over here begging for worship, who's been tainting the water, can you please take care of her? We also have, as far as I have gotten, I don't know a whole bunch about this book. I think going in blind is a way to stay unbiased, but we also have a young lady who is a lordling, who escapes from home because her mother just doesn't really care, or doesn't seem to care, and she has a problem where she has connected with a very small god, and so she's reaching out to the god killer that we follow in this book to try and see if she can help her with her problem. She doesn't know why she's connected to this god, she doesn't know where it came from, and I believe the last POV, there might be more, but another one is a previous servant to a prince who is now a king, who is now retired and has gone into a life of baking. I'm not sure what that portion of the story entails, but I'm really excited because each one seems very interesting. And I think, maybe not in this book, but maybe in the series in general, they all kind of collide. I think they're going to be on opposite sides, so love to see where this is going to go, and how much I can get through. Hopefully the entire thing today, hopefully it keeps my attention, so we'll see. So the next book that I want to possibly get into, just because it's a lot shorter, is one I've picked up recently. My wife and I went to a bookstore in Georgetown, the new Barnes & Noble in Georgetown, just to check it out, and I saw this, and I read the description, which I'll give a little bit of the description here, and it caught my attention. It's a little bit older of a novel, or a little bit older of a novella, I think it might be classified as, but that is going to be Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. As far as I'm aware, this is actually a classic science fiction novel. So let me just give you a little bit of an overview. It says, when psychologist Chris Kelvin arrives at the planet Solaris to study the ocean that covers the surface, he finds himself confronting a painful memory, embodied in the physical likeness of a past lover. Kelvin learns that he is not alone in this, and that other crew members examining the planet are plagued with their own repressed and newly real memories. Could it be, as Solaris scientists speculate, that the ocean may be a massive neural center creating these memories for a reason that no one can identify? This sounds not just very interesting, but super, super refreshing. It's an idea that, though this is an older novel, it's an idea that just really breathes an interesting concept. A planet that may be living, and maybe causing other folks to experience neurological side effects of being on the planet. So something that I think we can really get through. Again, it's shorter than God Killer. It's only just above 200 pages. I think this is one that I can get through pretty quickly. So I just need a little bit of, as long as it keeps my attention. With a lot of, the thing with a lot of classics in science fiction is that the way it's written, if it's hard science fiction, can be very, very stale with the characters. Well, the concepts may be interesting, the characters do fall very flat with a lot of classic science fiction novels. So as long as this one has a little bit of interesting aspect to the characters, it's not very boring or very flat, I think we can get through this pretty quickly. If it is, it might take us a little bit longer, but I do have a lot of hope for getting through this. The next book that that I have here. Sorry, I've got all the books like right in my lap, and so I'm just kind of picking them up one at a time. The next book is one that I did go over in my last video. If you haven't looked, go ahead and check that out. That video is basically books that are my 2025 hopefuls and my 2025 TBR, the books that I will be getting to. But this one was not one of the wills, this one was one of the maybes. So this one is Moonbound by Robin Sloan. I picked this up last year because this cover was just absolutely gorgeous. And from what I remember, which is not a whole ton, and I'm going to keep it that way just because I think, again, it breeds an ability. Actually, let me hold it on this side. There's a lot more room over here. It breeds the ability for me to not go in with any sort of idea of any sort of notion of what could be going on, and for me to formulate an opinion prior to reading it. I think it allows me to have a little bit more of a refreshing reading experience, and so I'm going to go in blind with this book. The only thing I know is that it blends, it does a very fantastic job, Robin Sloan does a very fantastic job of blending science fiction and fantasy in all of their books. And so if I really like this one, I might end up picking up the other books that they have already released. So we're going to go ahead and see, but I think once I get through those two, this one is most likely going to be the next book that I'll read in the 24-hour period. It's still relatively short. Let's see. It's just over 400 pages, it seems like. So this is something that I could get to. If not, we can get through most of it and see how we feel about it. If it's something that really just isn't like catching me, or one of the other books isn't catching me and I decide to go to this one next a little bit sooner, or if this book just doesn't catch me, I can move on to the next book. So we'll see. Hopefully I can get to this before the halfway period of the 24 hours, and so then I have 12 hours to finish this and then get to the next book. I'm not the fastest reader, so if you're hearing getting through what 800 pages in 12 hours is slow, then I apologize, but I'm not a fast reader. So the last book that I would like to get to, I also just purchased the audiobook, and so I can probably split my reading time a bit and keep me a little more focused, but this is a book that is one of the priority reads for me. I don't think I went over it in my my last video, my 2025 hopefuls and TBR, because I wanted to go through it in another video idea that I had, but I think I'm scrapping that as well. The next book is Blood Over Bright Haven by Emma Long. This has been a book that I've seriously been super excited for since it came out originally as a self-pub book. Wish I had picked it up then, because I think the self-pub cover is miles ahead of this cover, and I wish they would have just kept it, but they didn't, and it sucks that I can't get it anymore unless I'm going to pay like a super ridiculous price for it. But as far as I know, Blood Over Bright Haven is a new book, maybe a standalone in Emma Long's discography. The premise, as far as I'm aware, is just this is a dark academia, very magic heavy, female protagonist, a lot of buzzwords that I love to hear. I did get through the prologue. That's as far as I've gotten so far. It is super, just from that prologue, super dark and gritty. So it's a little bit of a different book from Sword of Kaigen, where Sword of Kaigen had a much lighter feel to it at the beginning. This does not seem like it's going to have a lighter feel at all. It's going to be very dark, and so this is going to be a very interesting book. If I do get to it, I'm hoping I can finish it in this 24-hour period. If not, it will be finished right after this video, because it's already super interesting, and I've only listened to the prologue. So first things first, like I said, it is currently 11:21 a.m. on Saturday, January 18th. Sorry, a little glare. I'm looking at my phone right now to go ahead and set the timer, because right now I'm going to go throw in some headphones. I'm going to listen to God Killer while I do deep cleaning. So right before we do that, let's set the timer for 24 hours. As you can see, 24 hours right there. All right. And once I start cleaning, we're going to go ahead and get it going. So I will see you when I am done cleaning and ready to talk about God Killer. Welcome back. For you, it's probably been only like a few minutes since the last time we talked, but for me, it has been, I think it was just after 11 when I started this video. It's now almost 6 p.m. So it's been a few hours that I've been listening to the book, and obviously I've changed. So I listened to God Killer while, sorry, I was looking at the book, got it right here with me. Listening to God Killer while I was cleaning, and then I took a short break to go ahead and get a shower, get some food in me. So I think I've only really elapsed 4 hours. I think I'm at 20 hours exactly. And in that 4 hours, even though it's been about 6 hours since it's passed, in that 4 hours, I've gotten myself to chapter 16, about 136, 137 pages in. So I'm pretty good bit through the book. I'd call that a little more than halfway. I'm enjoying it a lot. It reminds me of the Vagrant Gods series by David Dalglish. It's very God heavy. It's very much a trying to, I feel like it's going in a direction where we're going to get back to what the normalcy of was prior to, in this story, the war against the gods, and the then banning of the gods in this world. Very, very LGBTQ friendly, which I really enjoy. Very much like the voice of Kissin, the main protagonist, the God Killer. I love that there's this what feels like a wall built up because of her childhood trauma. I feel like we're really going to get into that, and I really enjoy that her traveling companions seem to be breaking down her wall. I think we're going to get probably a large battle at the end that's really going to open her up to the other characters, and I think it's going to make it a fantastic first book in a series. And in all honesty, I'm just going to breeze through the rest of this. Probably another like 3-ish hours, and I'll be done with it because I'm going to switch from audiobook to physical. Now that I can just go ahead and pick it up, and maybe I'll be a little bit faster just because the audiobook narrator was pretty slow. I did speed her up to 1.5 speed, and I still felt it was kind of slow. So maybe 2 hours I can finish this book and go ahead and get started on the next one. But I'm really enjoying it, and I'm probably going to pick up book 2 and book 3 when it comes out later this year. So that's the update for me. I don't know if the clips are going to come beforehand or after, but if it's beforehand, and I think it is, you're going to see that I went ahead and also made myself a nice little Americano. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in me because it's going to be a very long night. Probably plan on staying for this entire 24 hours period. Just to really kind of like push myself into reading more. A little bit of background about me and my reading habits. I have a lot of other hobbies that I kind of put before reading. And I'm really trying to split my time in a lot better way. Spend a lot less time on other hobbies like my gaming, like my coffee, or just work, or trying to find a balance between everything, and so that I can reach a higher potential for the amount of books that I read and how well I also read and how well I also do reviews. I feel like it's a place where I'm lacking and I really want to push forward. So depending on how well this goes, I might actually do like a 24-hour reading challenge like once a month, just to really maximize the amount of books that I can get in within a monthly period. So, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to probably lay on the couch, like throw in some headphones, listen to some lo-fi, go ahead and get God Killer finished, and then I'll be back for an update for that, and also me starting, again, Solaris being the next one, just because it's the next short book that I can go ahead and get through pretty easily. So I'll see you then. So, sorry for the poor lighting. My bald fucking head is not really cooperating with this light. That's much better. Um, so, let me pause my timer real quick and try not to wake my dog. So I just finished God Killer. Spent most of the day outside of like times that I'm eating or just um, honestly with TikTok going down today, backing that up and everything. So a couple hours where I didn't read today, but for the most part I read. And I just finished God Killer, the entire book. There's my bookmark right there. And for context, there is 16 hours, 30 minutes, 23 seconds left of the timer. I think it took a little bit longer than I thought it would to get through something that's just under 300 pages. But again, I did start with the audiobook, and I did kind of continue with the audiobook. I think it just, once I put it on 2x speed, it was good to kind of follow along in the physical book with the audiobook at the same time. So that's what I ended up doing. It may have killed a bit more time than necessary to get through it, but it was very enjoyable to do it that way. And I think 16 hours is going to be more than enough time to get through at least Solaris. That is just under 200 pages, so I really only see that taking me maybe a couple of hours tomorrow. And then I can go ahead and get started on Moonbound. Hopefully get through most, if not all of it. I think I also have that on audiobook, so I may do the same thing I did with God Killer and listen and read the physical at the same time, just to kind of, if my eyes lose focus, I'm still listening to it. So this was actually really, really good. God Killer really, really reminds me of the Vagrant God series that I mentioned earlier by David Dalglish. Very much so, down to the types of characters, down to the way gods are treated, down to the twist towards the end during the last little bit. It really, really reminds me of that, and I very much enjoy that series. So I think this is going to be another series that I really enjoy, and with it being very short, I think all three books, when the third book comes out, I think they're all very short. So this is a series that I can kill this year easily. I will say I wasn't a huge fan of the enemies to lovers sort of portion of it. It's not my personal preference when it comes to love tropes, when it comes to romance tropes. It's not my personal favorite. It's actually one I don't like that much. It was done a lot better here than in a lot of books. But I think it was a little bit rushed in this book. I feel like it's something that maybe could have been postponed until later in the series, just to kind of really do the will they won't they type of thing, and then just finally drive it home, maybe like book 3, middle or end of book 3, to kind of just solidify that they the two main characters, Eligast and Kissin, are an item, right? But I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the gods in this. I love that they're not constrained to only elemental gods. There's gods for everything. There's a god of broken sandals, right? People need things, they pray to a god for it, they pray to somebody for it, and it manifests. And I really enjoy that aspect. I think the world building is absolutely fantastic in this. And I think honestly the size is perfect. I don't think this needs to be something that could have been longer, and I definitely don't think it could have been shorter. I think a lot of fantasy books these days tend to err on the side of being shorter than what I would prefer. I feel like they could delve deeper into their world building. I feel like they could delve deeper into their character work. And sometimes it just falls a little bit short, a little bit flat on those aspects when they tend to go this short, or even maybe 100 pages longer. I feel like they usually could do with an extra 50 to 100 pages. Sorry if you can hear my dog snoring in the background. He's a very sleepy boy. But this was actually, I think it was perfect for being bite-sized. I hope that kind of continues on with the series, where we're not missing anything in book 2. It's not just a setup book for the final conclusion in book 3. I hope that it's very contained like this one was. We have a full-on story. We have a climax and resolution here with a little bit of extra on the end just to get us excited for what's going to come in book 2. So I think next time I go to Barnes, I'm going to have to pick up the next one. And honestly, it may have just solidified itself as now being a series that I'm putting on my TBR for a priority read, just because it's super small and I can easily get through this and still meet my other priorities. So, but going back to what time it is, oh, dang it, I woke him up. But going back to what time it is, I started this at about 11:09 this morning. It's now 11:39. 12 hours have elapsed, but only 16 hours on our thing because it's only the time that I'm reading. So there's about 4 hours in my day that I just didn't read. Unfortunately, this isn't my full-time job or anything. I still have responsibilities, and so there's going to be some time where I won't be reading. And I think that most likely it'll either finish this 24-hour challenge tomorrow or the next day, probably pretty early. But for now, because it's so close to midnight, I'm actually going to go ahead and stop here. And so I'll see y'all tomorrow with the next book. Okay, so it has been a couple of days since I finished the challenge. It took me a lot longer than I thought, roughly about a week, but unfortunately life things come up, and so the challenge has to get put on hold. But that is the great part of doing it based off of time, right? Instead of me saying, hey, in this 24-hour period, how much can I read? It's as long as I'm reading, the timer goes down. So regardless, I'm still getting 24 hours straight of reading. So let's go ahead and go through what I read and what I enjoyed and what I didn't. So just to recap, what I read to start this challenge was God Killer by Hannah Kaner. This, I kind of went in pretty blind. I knew it obviously deals with gods, it's in the title, but went in blind, and it really, really just engrossed me into the story. Like, I really enjoyed this, and I didn't expect to, at least not as much as I did. It didn't blow my mind, it didn't do anything crazy, but the character work was just really phenomenal. I loved all of the character viewpoints, except for maybe the king. I wasn't a big fan of him, just because I felt like it was I'm this way to be this way, and not really any like super in-depth reason, or maybe just not a reason that we are privy to until maybe book 2 or 3. But it was really fun, really enjoyable. It had its dark moments, it had its cute moments, it had its funny moments. I think this really had a little bit of everything, and I can't actually wait to pick up book 2. So much so that I almost just straight went to book 2 for the following book, because unfortunately, and I don't have it beside me, the next book was supposed to be Solaris. But hold on, before I get to that, if you follow me on Goodreads or Storygraph, you'll see that I actually rated this about 4 stars. I think I might have rated it 4.5. I really, really enjoyed this. Even as I've sat with it, it's been a really good book. And again, I can't wait to get to the next one. Hopefully it's also really good. So going back to Solaris. It may be just me. I may not be the person who enjoys classic sci-fi. I know classic sci-fi is very, very much an ideas thing. It's very, very much not a character study or a character work book, or it's a character work genre. This is probably the third classical science book that I've just kind of not enjoyed. Not to say that I didn't really enjoy this. I don't know if it was the fact that I had read essentially God Killer straight and instantly jumped into the next book, or that the book just really wasn't for me. But I got about 30 pages in and caught myself falling asleep. I'm not gonna be able to finish the challenge with 0 engagement, right? Like, the characters were okay. They weren't the worst classic science fiction characters I've read, but the very info dumpy, let's explain all the science here section just really again, it was putting me to sleep. It's not enjoyable to read for me. I know some people really enjoy that. They really enjoy what the real sciencey aspect is of it, or maybe the mumbo jumbo that they think really kind of explains what's going on in the story. But for me, it's info dumpy. It's very boring. It's stale. So I just really put it down. Maybe I'll come back to it. It's not that long of a book, so I could probably power through, but it just isn't made for this challenge. It's something that I need to kind of digest over a few days, not in a couple of hours. So instead, and I don't have that book either that I did read, but I do have what I read it on, which is my Onyx Books device. I switched gears and went to an Adrian Tchaikovsky novella. As mentioned earlier, there was a specific booktube channel, and I will link her below if her channel is not on the screen right here. That during this challenge, when I took a short break, we went and watched her video where she went through all, I believe, 11 Adrian Tchaikovsky novellas, and one that I've been teetering on the edge of picking up has been Elder Race. Well, she highly suggested it, and she said it was probably the most, I believe it was the easiest one to get yourself into. The one thing about Adrian Tchaikovsky that I'll say is he's a really interesting writer. His ideas are very interesting. They're very, he has a way of really just kind of bringing you into the story, thinking that it's going to go one way, and it really just kind of like twists itself around into something you never thought it was going to be. And that's what Elder Race was. It felt like it could have been a classical fantasy novella, little hero's tale, with a slight journey, and it turns more into a giant miscommunication trope. Hey, I'm from the future. I'm from what they would presume is the future, and so they think I'm a wizard, when I'm just a guy from a portion of human civilization that seems to be more technologically advanced than what we've turned into on this other planet. And so being the wizard, he's there to solve a problem that they can't. And an interesting conundrum prevents them from being able to really understand each other. He believes he understands the language, so he says some things, and then it's translated onto another page what they believe he is saying to them, and it's like really against what he's trying to compel. And so it becomes a little bit of a funny thing. It is kind of a gruesome and dark book, to be honest, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I devoured that in like a couple of hours. I think it was like 2 hours, and I'm done with it. it was fun, and honestly, I might really dive more into Adrian Tchaikovsky, just because the only other book that I've read was Children of Time. I didn't go into the next book at the time last year, but I'm gonna definitely pick up and finish that series, pick up book 2 and 3 this year, just so I don't go too far without reading the follow-ups. But super awesome book, highly suggested. I believe this was also a 4-star, 4.5-star book, or a novella, just because it was just so, not just engaging, but it felt fresh. It felt like a fresh tale in the science fiction / fantasy genre, and so I highly suggest people should go and pick this up. Like, absolutely. Now, originally when I started this challenge, after those two, I was going to pick up Moonbound. I don't think I was just in the right mindset for it, and there was a book that is on my TBR and has been for a little bit, but I planned on getting around to it this year, and so I said, fuck it. Let's just skip Moonbound. I can always pick that up another time and read Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wong. I absolutely loved Sword of Kaigen. It was a very interesting tale. It went places I never thought it would go, and I really, really loved it. I was a little worried that this was going to be more conventional, and it was. It was a bit more of a conventional tale than Sword of Kaigen, but M.L. Wong just has this way of weaving a tale where no matter how predictable certain parts of it is, and this book did have portions of it that were a little bit predictable, the characters are just so damn good. The characters are fantastic. The world building is amazing. The magic system is super unique this time around. It's not an elemental magic. It is super, super like cool, especially somebody who is in the STEM realm. Having something that feels like a coding style magic was awesome. And the ending is just wow. Originally, I was going to rate this a 4-star book before I got to the ending. And usually I'm not a fan of people saying, well, the ending makes the book. The ending of this really did make the book. I feel like there were a lot of themes here that are not really shined a light on much in fantasy unless you're reading someone who's a female author. We had racism brought up, sexism. We had religious persecution, just all weaved together in a tale. Usually you might get 1 or 2 of those, but there were so many things that kind of really fit together just to form a book that really just honed in on the unnecessary motives that humans have to go out of their way to hate people for who they are. And it just really resonated with me, and wow. Just sitting on it, I really enjoyed that book, and I'd honestly go back and read it again tomorrow, but obviously I have other things to read, so I can't do that. But I gave Blood Over Bright Haven a 5 stars. It is my first 5-star read this year. I'm surprised it came so early, but I'm glad I pivoted and went to Blood Over Bright Haven. If you have not read an M.L. Wong book, I think this is probably the easiest one to get into because it's a more conventional story. Until you see the twists and turns that do happen, it is, again, like I said, a little repetitive, but it doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the book. It doesn't take away from the implications of what the events are, right? Then I would say get into Sword of Kaigen, just because, again, it's less conventional. It's a bit more of a roller coaster, I should say, not to give anything away, but 5 out of 5 stars. That was the last book I finished in this challenge. By the time I finished Blood Over Bright Haven, I have it backwards. Oops. By the time I finished Blood Over Bright Haven, which honestly cannot wait for my Broken Binding version to come in. Hopefully they get it to me soon. But by the time I finished it, I had about 3.5 hours left in my challenge. I'm not the fastest reader. And how I read both of the physical books was by doing an audio and physical read at the same time, similar to like Kindle's Whisper Sync. I felt it kept me from getting distracted a lot, and so I decided to go that way, and that meant I read a little bit slower because I think I can read a little bit faster than a narrator can narrate at 2 times speed. Well, I did God Killer at like 1.7 and then Blood of Brighthaven at 2, but by the time I was finished with all that, I had only about 3.5 hours, 4 hours left. Again, did not go to Moonbound. I was like, you know what, I'm definitely not going to be able to finish that book in 4 hours. I think it's very ambitious to be able to finish a lot of books in 4 hours that are behind me, all these massive ass books. And I didn't really have any other novellas that I was very interested in picking up at the time. But there was a book that I did start last year. I got not very far in, maybe about a fifth into the book, and I kind of just put it down. I don't remember why, but I was enjoying the book quite fairly. So I decided to give it another shot, and I'm really, really enjoying this book. And that is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Right, yeah. The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is interesting, to say the least. I am a fan, or at least growing up, I was a fan of reading like the Hardy Boys. If y'all are, I guess, old enough to know what the Hardy Boys are, I don't know if they still have books written out. Probably not. But if you don't know, they are a series of mystery books for kids, usually directed at boys. So really enjoy mystery tales, but I feel like a lot of the adult mysteries are just not interesting to me. But this feels like a mystery story, a Sherlock Holmes and Watson tale that is in a super unique universe that, from what I can tell, seems a little bit kind of Attack on Titan-y, with these Leviathan, which seem to be aquatic creatures that are gigantic and terrorize the world that we're in. To combat them, they have tiered walls. It's a walled city with different tiers. Obviously, the further away from the sea you go, the inner wall is probably the more rich area, where the outer wall, where we are at, the outer bits of the wall, is where our story takes place. The world is also like very much based around fauna. Houses are built with ferns. You have fancy ass humidifiers that are mushrooms. Like, it's super interesting. We follow Din, who is an apprentice investigator, who's on his first murder mission. Is on his first murder mystery case. And this case takes him and his mentor on what seems to be a wild ride, a wild conspiracy on possibly taking over the government, or overthrowing the government. So far, it's been really fun. The characters are very interesting. We have a huge juxtaposition between Din and Anna. I believe it's Anna, his mentor, where he is very reserved. He's very formal, very to the book, and she's like, fuck this, fuck that, like fucking throwing F words everywhere. She's weird, she's wacky, but it works. If every character was like that, I would hate this book, but it works having somebody who we're not in the heads of the entire time, that kind of throws out who has like a completely different wavelength, right? So it makes the book fresh. It's been very entertaining and really enjoyable. Obviously, I didn't finish it, but I am about 150-ish pages in. 155 pages in, and I am absolutely going to finish this book. Like, I had half a mind of making it more like a 36-hour reading challenge just so I can finish this and throw it in there. But it's been fun. I cannot wait to finish that. It probably, I think at the moment, sitting around the 4-star, which fantastic that I've basically read nothing but great books aside from Solaris. But I'm super, super excited to finish this. Hopefully it can push its way up. We'll see where the middle of the book towards the end takes us. But if the mystery isn't as predictable as I think it might be, this could end up being a second 5-star book. highly suggest people pick this up, especially if you're a big fan of mysteries and are kind of looking for that very weird, very fantasy-esque, very out there novel. I think this is one you should pick up. Now, going to my thoughts about the challenge in general. This was something that I've never really done. Reading is a hobby of mine, but it's not my first hobby. Obviously, you would know, but if you do look over there, I do have a guitar as one of my hobbies. I game as another hobby. I work out as another hobby. I have a lot of hobbies. I'm somebody who just picks them up constantly, and because of that, reading not being my primary, I usually fall flat on my reading challenges. Usually peter out like midway through the year and have to try and pick myself back up in the last like quarter to push myself past what I did the year before. Well, this year I'm trying to really push myself, make reading a more primary hobby for me so that I can enjoy all these tales that I have a limited amount of time of reading. And so I can enjoy these tales with you, the audience, or with the communities that I'm a part of. So this challenge was not just to do something fun and different. This challenge was a way for me to kickstart my year off right, force myself to push reading to the forefront. And I think I really did that. In a week's time worth of time, I read 3 books, 2 full books, 1 novella, and I'm maybe encroaching on halfway through a 4th. It's only January and I'm going to be 4 books in, which may not seem like a lot to some people, but for me that's a lot, especially since I didn't really read the first week and a half, 2 weeks into the month. I enjoyed it so much that I may actually bring this challenge back on a bi-monthly schedule. I won't be doing it in February, but it's possible that I do it in beginning of March, just to kickstart every month with a really positive and strong start to reading. It showed me what I could be capable of if I do that. I've read several hundred books just in a week, and so I think it's a challenge everybody should do. Everybody should try it at least once. Push yourself, push the boundaries of what you think you're capable of doing, and you'll see what you can do. Hell, I may be able to do 5 books next time, maybe 6 if I really hunker down and plan myself out a little bit better so I don't have a Solaris incident. But that's basically going to be it for me today. I challenge all of you to give it a shot. Do a 12-hour reading challenge if 24 doesn't really work for you, or an 8-hour reading challenge, or challenge yourself to do something else for several hours just to see if you can do it, because you can. If you put your mind to it, you can absolutely do it, and maybe it'll open your eyes into something else that you may want to make a priority for yourself for the year. So let me know down in the comments, what do you think of the challenge? Do you want to try it yourself? What do you think of the books that I read? Are any of them books that you've read, or are they books that you want to read? Let me know. Leave a comment. If you like the video, please also let me know. This is going to take a lot of time for me to edit. It took a lot of time for me to record. So I hope you've appreciated it, and please give a subscribe if you enjoy my content. I'm going to try and make videos on a more consistent basis, not once every 2 weeks, maybe once every week. But without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one.